Right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's edition of the Carvel Community Meeting. Today's date is September 27th, 2023. If you're watching this recording from home, we encourage you to come join us live. We meet every second and fourth Wednesday of the month at 8 a.m. Pacific time. It's a good opportunity for you to come and meet the maintainers, meet other members of the community, listen in on what we're working on, provide feedback, ask questions on how to use any of the tools, or if you have any suggestions on how to improve the tools. We would love to have you. So please come join us. And then if for those that are here on the meeting, you do have something you wish to discuss, you can just add that to this discussion topic section down here at the bottom of the agenda. If you cannot join these meetings live and you still want to get a hold of us, there's plenty of opportunities for you to do so. You can find us in the Carvel channel in the Kubernetes Slack workspace. You can email us. You can find us in GitHub within any of our project repos. You can find us on Twitter at Carvel_dev. And then if you're at any point interacting with us or any other members of the community, please read and abide by our code of conduct, which is linked here and then throughout all of our repos. And as I mentioned this for every meeting, just a reminder, we do have this pinned issue that asks how you are using the Carvel tools. We have it in our Carvel repo. We have it in all of the other tools repos. It's a pinned issue that asks, are you using Carvel or using YTT, any of the tools whatsoever. Asks different details on how you're using it, about your company, et cetera, et cetera. It just helps us to better understand how people are using the tools, and it also helps the community see how you can use the tools. So we would love to have this here on these pinned issues just for reference. So if you have the time, please do so. We would love to see that. And those that are on the call today, just a reminder to add your name here as an attendee and the organization that you are representing here. Moving on to announcements. So Hacktoberfest is coming up. I've been sick for the last week, and so I didn't put all the information I wanted to in here. I'm just now kind of getting back today. But Hacktoberfest usually starts October 1st and goes all the way through the month of October, and it's put on by DigitalOcean and some other partnered companies, and it's a way to we encourage people to contribute to open source projects, specifically first-time contributors. So I know Carvel will definitely be participating. We just have to look through the issues and tag appropriately, and once we do, we'll have that listed here, and we'll make sure to do a blog post about it as well. Moving on to releases, we got Cap. Who wants to talk about that?
I can talk about that a little bit. All right. So to start off with, I guess I'll start off with the new contributors. So Vix is 0. Anshul actually contributed a change which ensures that when we're running cap with a diff run, just to do a diff of things, we do not make unnecessary API calls. So thanks, Anshul. And so their GitHub username is Testwell, but I don't know how to pronounce their name, so I'm just going to go with that. So Testwell actually sort of ensured that we are not using any deprecated Go packages. So thanks for that. And then we had a contribution from Andy, because Andy was doing a POC with OLM and Cap. So they wanted to be able to consume Cap easily from within OLM. And that's the change that was made in this PR. So that's gone out as a part of this release. Then we have supporting rejects and config paths by Yash. So when we are defining certain rules for cap configuration, we have this request that I want to do something like I want to select this path if the key starts with this value, right? And that's something this ensures. So let's say you have 4 annotations with the same prefix. Instead of writing a rebase rule for each one of them, you can sort of use a config path with rechecks and say that I want all of these rebased. The next two changes by Praveen actually enable a change in kapp-controller. So today, what was happening is so we have these config maps called app change config maps, which are created for every change that kapp-controller commits onto the cluster. And what was happening today is that even though it was set to 0, it was still trying to create a config map and then delete it. And this leads to kapp requiring more permissions, even though it's not necessary in some cases. So this PR ensures that we do not do that, right? And then we have the app namespace flag. So the app namespace flag essentially tells kapp where the config map, which kapp uses to store some metadata, should live, right? And yeah, that's about it. That's the changes in kapp.
All right, thanks, Samik. Any questions or comments there? Okay, and I just want to point out when Samik said, mentioned like, oh yeah, Andy made this contribution. Andy is with Operator Framework, which is an incubating CNCF project. So, which we're hoping to work a little bit more closely with. So, thank you to the new contributors here. Super appreciate all the work you do. Okay, moving on to kapp-controller. These two releases.
No, I think I can elaborate on that again. So I think most of the changes are bumps. The important one is we have now added a field called default namespace to our package installs and app CRs. And under the hood, this sort of introduces the new flag used by kapp, but I won't get into the details there. But the general idea is if you have resources in your package that do not have a namespace specified, you can essentially use this field to tell kapp-controller where those resources should go. So this is, that's essentially what this new field does. So it helps us in scenarios where you might want to install the same package in different contexts, but like instead of doing something very intrusive like curating values for all of this, you can simply say that this is the default namespace I want to use in this case. So it can be pretty easily done by the consumer. So yeah, that's what this change does. And 48.1, I believe, was a bug in that issue, which we resolved and released a patch release. So that's about it.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Samik. Any questions or comments on these? All right. Moving on to KWT. First off, whoever wants to talk about this, give a little overview about what KWT is. We never talk about this.
So Joe would have been the right person, but because I have not used KWT a lot. But from what I remember, the idea is that if you're like playing around with Kubernetes applications on your local host and maybe you want to forward some ports and set up like a debug environment, KWT helps you do that easily. So this is a really old tool. It was eventually, I guess, split into kapp and some other tools, right? However, we actually had a user show up on our channel and be like, hey, I'm still using this tool and I want to be able to use this on my new laptop. So we essentially made a release with binaries supporting those architectures.
Nice. And that was both of the releases supporting those.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah. All right. Pretty cool. So yeah, KWT is like one of our experimental tools. We should probably, go back to it and provide a little bit more information since we do have people that are interested in still using it. Thanks, Samek. All right, moving on to status updates, starting with the product roadmap. Do we have any updates here for the supporting emitting comments and resulting YAML for YTT?
We do not have any updates on this as of now. We will probably have folks on the team, the new folks who have joined and want to work on YTT, take up some of the smaller issues first before they jump onto this one. And even if we do, we will take up the part where we are only doing YTT emitting comments and not YTT emitting YTT. There were a few risks which were identified with this. One is that moving to YAML v3 has its issues. That itself, and we want to see that we are not making this decision in haste, moving to YAML v3. And even if we do, we'll do only parts of that is what will move to v3, not to the whole of the code. Yep.
Right, thanks, Renu. Moving on to Carvel overall, signature and SLSA attestation for all Carvel artifacts. Any updates here?
Yeah, so the RFC has been reviewed, I think, with 3 approvals from the maintainers. So I'm not sure what's next now.
So this is really good because I think this is a great issue for Hacktoberfest. I think we can sort of create issues for each of the projects and sort of mark them for Hacktoberfest. There'll be like a good 5 or 6 issues, maybe more. So it'll be pretty cool, I believe. Because I think Thomas's proposal pretty much hammers out the changes that are needed. And once you have reviewed the first change, the others are pretty much similar. So it'll be like something folks would be able to contribute easily. So, yeah.
Okay, who wants to take that on to make sure this can be ready for Hacktoberfest?
So I guess the pull request needs to be merged first.
Yep.
Should update the state on the pull request. I think there's a new state I need to set up so I can do that. And then, yeah, merge the pull request.
Okay, cool. I guess Sound can you keep an eye on that and then just let me know when it's ready and I can start making noise about it? Or like add it to our list of things that we can promote for Hacktoberfest.
Yeah, I guess I'll chat with Thomas and see it through.
Cool, thanks. Okay, and thanks, Thomas. Moving on to the Carvel supports the ability to sign and verify assets. And then Samaki says a pause on this for the past couple of weeks, so no updates there. Cool. And then backlog, got K-control work happening.
Yep, I can talk about that, and this will sort of explain the pause as well, I hope. Okay, I'm actually going to add another point there later on. So we've been working on 2 main things. So I'll start with the second point, managing multiple value references. So we have started like sort of following this pattern for some of our stuff downstream, where when we supply values to a package install, it's a list of value references. Rather, it doesn't have to be a single value reference. So it's like a pattern where the first value can be user supplied, whereas another agent or entity can add additional values to it, which sort of like additional secret references to it, which contains some additional values. And what YTT does is when it sees multiple value files, it sort of merges them. And today YTT does not merge lists, but it merges maps. So how this is useful is, let's say you have like a pretty large configuration, right? And some parts of the configuration might contain some secrets. And let's say you're doing 3 different connections for this particular package, and all of them will have their tokens or some CA data. And it's always a better idea to have these secrets separated, like not put in one single secret, just as a better security measure. And that's something we've been doing. The challenge is when we were building out K-control initially, we sort of assumed that we'll at least start off with only deal with one secret when handling package installs. And we're looking to change that. So we'll be working towards having a proposal around how K-control can sort of observe and manage multiple secrets while being backwards compatible. So yeah, that's the second one there. I'm just thinking if I should add. Yeah, so we have like an internal proposal going which sort of defines how our customers will consume it. We'll probably boil it down to like something for our open community as well, so that folks can take a peek at it. And let's see, the first one, bootstrapping. Okay, so bootstrapping, we essentially have been figuring out better ways of delivering kapp-controller or secretgen-controller, or let's say any package that forms like the baseline for your cluster. Like another example of this would be, so there's a pattern that Thomas had mentioned earlier, where you sort of bake in Kyverno policies into your packages. In that case, you'd want Kyverno installed initially. And maybe you don't have kapp-controller running at that point, right? Maybe you do that later, or you would just want to deploy kapp-controller. So when you do this, these package installs won't be reconciled, but it sort of helps you set up a baseline for your cluster. So that we are sort of exploring how we can do that. How can you like point to a package repository and be like, hey, look, I want to install this package from this repository, and I'm fine if it's not reconciled. And this could actually also become a great way of installing kapp-controller through K-control, but more generic, so that if something like this pops up eventually, let's say you have to install some things before installing kapp-controller, you'll be able to do that. So that's sort of the goal behind it, I would say. This is something that Madan and Yash have been working on, and we'll be taking it forward.
Cool. Any questions or comments on that?
Yeah, I think that sounds really, really interesting. I was actually trying to experiment with how to bootstrap a cluster because, for example, with Flux, you can use the CLI to bootstrap or to deploy Flux CD, and then automatically also set up a Git repo that then reconciles Flux CD itself. So I was trying to install kapp-controller and then having it reconcile itself. But yeah, I failed miserably in my attempt, but it's really great to see that actually there's focus on this. I think it would be really, really useful.
And like, I guess one interesting thing is, let's say you have baked in policies into your kapp-controller package, right? You can actually also spin up Kyverno for kapp-controller and have it verified. It sort of eases things out, I guess. Like you can basically define the baseline for your cluster if it's generic, right? Like if it just does not bootstrap kapp-controller. So, but you added an interesting point though. I'm not sure if we'll reconcile kapp-controller using kapp-controller yet, but it's interesting, something to think about, I guess.
In a way, we can do it sort of right now as well using K-controller. Like we already have the kapp-controller package available in the releases.
Right.
So we can use that too. We can use that with K-controller to install kapp-controller.
like I'm not sure, did I get you wrong, Thomas? Like you were saying that there could be a package install which makes sure cap controller is in place, because that's a cycle, but
Yeah, so it's
is-
more like to establish a GitOps workflow. Like with Flux, I install through the CLI Flux, and at the same time it pushes a Git repo or points to a Git repo where also all the Flux manifests are. So on top of then upgrading Flux through those manifests the next time, so it's all GitOps based, then you also point directly to all your packages and applications you want to install. So I was trying to replicate that GitOps installation workflow. So that, but I can do it for all the subsequent packages, but then kapp-controller itself, yeah, I couldn't find a way to do that, like installing it manually and then upgrading it afterwards via GitOps.
yeah, gotcha. That's interesting. We haven't thought about that bit actually, but that's a nice point.
All right. Moving on to cap, patching resource history annotations instead of applying.
Madan, would you like to talk about this?
Yeah, sure. Actually, I'm working on this. There is already an issue when we create resources using cap. Uh, it creates the resource and then tries to add the annotation to the resource, and it actually update the complete full resource. And what happens is it takes more time, and sometimes there are some conflict errors, and there was already an issue created in the GitHub. So yeah, I have created PR for this and it is under review. Yeah.
Cool, thank you. Any questions or comments for that one? Okay, moving on to discussion topics. Integration with Flux sources.
So this is actually from a recently filed issue, and I was hoping Scott would be here because he sort of chimed in on it. I don't have a lot of context on this because I've not used Flux a lot, but some folks were suggesting it would be nice if kapp-controller packages can interface with Flux sources. So if you like have a Flux Git repository running, kapp-controller sort of grabs information from it and uses that to reconcile our package. I haven't weighed the benefits or pros and cons of this yet, but I was hoping, I don't know, Thomas, do you have thoughts on this? I believe you've used Flux before.
Yeah, send the link. We also have, let me send the link. We also have the other one, because what I thought initially was supporting YTT as a customization layer in Flux. Flux has this concept of a GitOps toolkit. So it's all like standalone components. There's a pattern to define components that can read sources, like a Git repository or an OCI artifact Helm chart. And then they have independent controllers that can apply different customizations. They have support for Customize and Helm. But one idea could be to have one that provides YTT support. And they would use those sources provided by Flux. But this other issue here is a bit different, because then it would be using kapp-controller directly reading from the sources that are available in Flux. So I think, yeah, different approaches there.
Like one cool thing I can think of, where this could be useful eventually, is I know that Flux has a concept where you can configure a source to only pull when there are changes from Git repository. Like Flux has its own effective way of doing that, apparently. And if kapp-controller can do like read from a source like that, I'm not sure how, but it could make things cleaner in a way. But I personally haven't explored this at all. So yeah, it's just a thought. So what the reporter did suggest is that So apparently what flux sources do is they sort of put the fetched material in like a consumable tarball, and they can today use HTTP to grab that using an app CR. But it will be nice if we have like an out of the box integration. So
Yeah, that URL is basically reconciling the status of the Git repository resource or OCI repository. So I think kapp-controller then would need to know about those APIs or those custom resources and read the status. And every time it changes, then it can change the URL. So otherwise, you would need some other tool that dynamically, every time the status changes on Flux, then you change the URL in the app CR.
right. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I don't really have anything to add to it, but I thought if someone here has like thoughts on it, it'll be nice to share.
Any other thoughts here? I guess if folks watching this from home have any thoughts as well, you can go to these issues and leave some comments. Love to hear from multiple sources on how they feel about this. Okay, moving on to updating Go modules for migrated repositories, vanity URLs.
Since Shaw is not here, I can talk about it. So like since we have moved to the new Carvel dev org, we need to update our Go modules. Like they're still using VMware Tanzu. And this will be sort of a breaking change for people who are using the tools as libraries. So last time when we did this, we didn't use vanity URLs or anything, so we just made a breaking change. Do we want to use vanity URLs this time, or should we do a change similar to last time? I think a lot of projects might also be moving to different organization while moving to CNCF. So is there like a general pattern that everyone follows? I think that would be a good question.
Also, I remember the folks at SOPs were dealing with the same thing. So I'm not sure what they ended up doing, but might be a good reference.
And Praveen, did you create an issue for this? I saw in the comments.
Yeah, I have created a issue under the Carvel repo. Let me share the link.
I got it right here. Well,
Yep, that's now.
sounds like something to explore.
Do you know someone we can reach out to in the CNCF landscape to check with?
So, like, you want to know how other projects have navigated something similar?
Yeah, and if we do want to use vanity URLs, is there like something from CNCF that we could get?
Here, I'll Take care of that. Anything else with this?
Nope, I'll create issues on individual tools and add a link to the parent issue.
Thanks, Thomas, for sharing that link. I'll put it in here as well. Okay. Moving on to copyright headers. What is the CNCF direction about the copyright in our files? And if we change it, should we change the copyright days to 2023 or keep the original ones? So are you saying right now they're all 2023, what I can see in like our Carvel dev website? So are you saying change when it hits 2024?
Right now, it's the year that those files were created in. Like if some file was created 3 years back, it would say 2020 or 2021. So if we update the copyright headers, should we move everything to 2023?
So just because I'm not familiar, like where are the copyright headers?
On top of every file.
On top of every file, okay.
Just to clarify, he's talking about the GitHub repositories where the code is residing, and this is about the copyright that is going into each of the files.
Okay. I think
I think usually we update every year, like all the files. Like
yeah, if you
copyright,
could
if
send
it's
me,
Java or something, no? Like they update every time when they update the copyrights.
yeah, if you could just send me like one example and then I can like ask CNCF what the direction is. Like, hey,
Yeah.
like
Okay.
with this example, you know, what do we need to do here for all of our other files? Okay. Anything else regarding that?
Oh.
Thank you, Praveen. I see that.
I threw that in the.
Thanks, Renew. Cool. All right, that's very helpful. Okay, anything else folks want to discuss before we end the meeting?
Just a
think-
quick question.
Before we move on from the copyright one, I think the bigger issue is there is VMware there in the copyright. So does that need to change?
That's like the main issue. And like another side question was, should we also update the year to 2023?
I just wanted to highlight that the main issue is that there is VMware in our copyright right now in the file. So year generally would not matter. You can have an old year also there. But if we are probably going to change to something new, we might as well change the years.
Are we trying to go to Apache license or what is the new license we are trying to go for?
We're not
It
changing our
right
license.
now it says copyright 2023 VMware Incorporation. It should be the Carvel authors now.
Yeah. I think I see Helm and all, they don't have the year at all. Like they just the Helm authors. So I think we can just follow that kind of pattern where we don't mention the year. Unless we are making substantial changes in the license. Like how you went to some new license, or like how recently was that Vault and all.
Yeah, I think the first course of action would be just to check in with CNCF on what we're supposed to do, and then go from there on what actions we need to take after that, if any. Okay, anything else on the copyright stuff? All right.
Quick question on SOP's part. Like Thomas mentioned that they have changed the URLs. I'm not sure if they are using vanity URLs.
Yeah, we'll have to probably chat with them.
Are there new SOPs releases happening after they moved?
Anything further on this? Or is that just more of a comment?
Yeah, just a comment. Like we have mentioned that SOPs is using vanity URLs.
Okay. Sorry, my brain is still in recovery mode from being sick. Okay. Anything else on any of the discussion topics here? Okay. And is there anything else anyone wants to bring up before we part ways? Nope. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for joining this week's edition of the Carvel community meeting. If you're watching us from home and there's things you saw here that you wish to comment on or provide feedback or even work on, please let us know. We would love to have you join us and engage with us and help us improve the project in all the ways. And with that, thank you everyone, and have a good rest of your day.